Welcome, everyone. We will give it about another 2 minutes as people trickle in before kicking off. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jack Scalia. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives at the New American Industrial Alliance, or NIA. NIA is a trade organization that focuses on reindustrialization. We are very excited to be joined today for this webinar with Ryan Abramson, CEO and co-founder of Scout Cities. Before we hand it over to Ryan for his briefing, just a quick run of the show. Ryan is going to brief a presentation for about 15-20 minutes. And then we will open up the conversation to a Q&A. So using the chat feature or the Q&A button, please drop notes in there and we will take them up in the Q&A portion. Without further ado, Ryan, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Appreciate it. My name is Ryan Abramson, co-founder and CEO of Scout Cities. We're a site selection platform for reindustrialization. Thanks to the NIA team for having us today. Super excited about this. At Scout, we're really passionate about democratizing access to data and information that's needed to build in the US. So we try to offer a lot of our software and our data and our advice for free, especially to folks that are very early, because we know when you're doing it big and there's a lot of money to spend and people to hire and power to source, then we'd be a good resource for you at that time. So please reach out. We'd love to support you in any way. And we're currently working on about $4 billion worth of capital projects for venture-backed hard tech companies. And so we feel like that positions us pretty well to be able to share some information around where to build, how to power facilities, how to staff them, and how to finance them. So that's the core of what we're talking about today. The backdrop of all this is that at the federal level, there's trillions of dollars in fiscal policy, and at the state and local level, there's billions of dollars in policy that is driving reindustrialization. But there's a big problem. We talk about this all the time. The problem is that everybody, whether you're a startup that's raised $10 million or $100 million, or an incumbent that has been operating in an industry for decades, you're fighting for the same resources. And those resources, when it comes to building in the US, are sites. So it's the property, the land, or the building. It's the energy, it's the power and gas that helps to run your facility, the incentives, that's the non-dilutive capital that helps to drive a project forward. And then, of course, labor. And we're talking about everyone from engineers to PhDs, all the way to production workers and hourly workers that make the factory go. And so as we think about where to build, we know that there's a lot of folks out there that are looking for the same things as you. And everyone always asks me, they say, well, Ryan, where do we build? Like, what are the best states for business? And I always say that's really not the right question to start with. The right question to start with is what? Because where we can't just tell you where has the most incentives. Incentives don't really drive a facility. A lot more to it than that. And so our recommendation is to think about, from a strategic standpoint, what are the make or break items that will determine your location? From a competitor standpoint, do you want to be in an ecosystem with your competitors, or do you want to be one of a kind? And then you can move to more of your center of gravity, your suppliers and your customers. If this is a high volume factory, where's all the inputs coming from, and then where are they going to as finished product? Because if it is high volume, then access to infrastructure and roads and considering costs to get those products out is going to be really important. And then lastly, policy. This one's interesting because if you are, for example, a semiconductor company, you'd want to know that Colorado and New York and Illinois and Indiana are states that have semiconductor specific policy, and they'll help you not only add funds to your project, but make it more feasible once you do get to that state. Then you can move into site specs. I mean, this is more of the really specific items around how much space do you need? What does your power pole look like? Do you need other utilities like gas, water, and wastewater? Labor is key. And then, of course, logistics. Is this site going to need access to truck, rail, or port? We've got a site criteria library, 157 factors. We give it away for free. Something to just think about. You don't need all 157, but it's something to start filling out as you're engaging in the site selection process. So even when I say where is not the right question, people still say, Ryan, where do we build? So my recommendation, one, we give away scoring for free in our platform. So you can enter all the criteria we just talked about and then start to score at the state level as well as the MSA level. But you're still probably going to come to me and say, Ryan, where do we build? So I will give you some ideas today. And we'll just do like a few state highlights. When we first started our company about 3 years ago, we set out to be the Yelp for state and city. We wanted you to be able to get information on the best place to grow your business, start a business, or expand. And so we aggregated data across every state, every city in the US. And we now look at what's happening today, not necessarily what's happening over the last 20 years, but right now and then over the next 10. So North Carolina is an interesting example. They've won some incredible projects from venture-backed startups over the last few years. Their Secretary of Commerce, Lee Lilly, has gone on record many times saying he understands startups. He understands the growth potential, and he's willing to take big swings from a policy and a financing standpoint to get these companies to do business in North Carolina. The research triangle, their labor pool, that stuff speaks for itself, and I think everybody knows about it. But when it comes to their programming and their leadership, I think they're a really interesting place to look. And by the way, we try to stay agnostic. We really try to take a data-driven approach, but these are just some ideas and a way to think about each state individually as you are figuring out the best place for your business. Mississippi, you've got Elon and xAI doing a $20 billion data center. I think it's in South Haven. Firehawk Aerospace just announced a $100 million facility. Mississippi is interesting from a shipbuilding standpoint. That's a huge topic in reindustrialization right now. And they have one of the largest concentration of shipbuilding companies and shipbuilding labor in the US. And then New Mexico. I don't think there's a large project that has come to us that has not asked about New Mexico because they have so much momentum right now. And at the state level, putting forth a lot of funding, $1.9 billion almost like a sovereign wealth fund. So at the state level, then combined with venture capitalists and fund managers that are investing in companies building in New Mexico. You've got the national labs, you've got emerging engineering talent, really great opportunities there. Pacific Fusion just chose New Mexico after a really long bake-off with California. So lots of momentum here and worth taking a look at. Moving on to power. If you need 1 to 5 megawatts, this probably isn't the biggest bottleneck for you. When you're starting to talk 5 to 50, 50 to 300, you are now competing with every hyperscaler, every data center company for cheap, available power. And I would say on every project, where the requirements are more than 5, it takes longer than anybody thinks. If you're looking for an existing building, the industrial buildings on the market might say heavy industrial, they might say advanced manufacturing, but a lot of the product out there is built for logistics, it's built for Amazon, and it doesn't require this amount of power. Even if the building was formerly an advanced manufacturing facility, the utility company is not just sending that power to the building, even though the tenant is moving on. And so you have to make sure that power capacity can still meet your needs. Our recommendation is one, be prepared. So make sure to get the information that is going to help a utility give you information. Load factor, power factor, what's your timing? Do you have diagrams? Do you need backup generators? These are things that a utility is going to be really curious about. And if you go into that conversation prepared, they may have information ready for you. They may have to do load studies. Just make sure to add additional timing to your site selection process if power is a big requirement. One of the things, if you are looking to build from the ground up and looking for greenfield opportunities, there are a lot of states that are investing in site readiness programs. So we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in funding at the state level that then trickles down to municipalities and utilities to develop sites and get them ready for energy intensive projects. We did a search in Virginia, their mega site program, very interesting. They've spent 9 figures grading, developing, building out infrastructure, doing power studies, and makes it really easy for companies to feel confident that power is not going to be a bottleneck. Caveat with these sites, you need to create hundreds, if not thousands of jobs to be eligible for them. They're not spending all that money to just, hand it over to a 25 job project. Not that wouldn't be amazing. It's just not a mega site or a site that's had all this money put into it. Now, the funding at the state level does trickle down in many of these cases to municipalities. So they may have buckets of funding that can help build out power infrastructure for non-mega sites as well. Labor. This one is near and dear to our hearts because we've spent a lot of time trying to build out labor in our platform and engaging with labor analytics companies to secure some of that data and provide it to our customers. And unfortunately, we were met with a lot of resistance when we went out and tried to build labor into our product. So we ended up aggregating all this data ourselves. And one of the things we realized in combining it with our project and incentive data is companies are not just competing for sites and incentives and mind share at the state and local level. The labor piece is always looking backwards. We're looking at, what does the census say? What does the Bureau of Labor Statistics say? It doesn't tell us that Anduril is hiring 5,000 people in Columbus over the next 5 years. And so if you want to go there, you are probably going to have to pay a lot more, but it's really unlikely that you'll outmarket them and outcompete them for that similar talent. So it's something to think about as you're navigating site selection. Which of these communities in the US have had recent announcements, and where are your competitors potentially hiring, or even competitors from a talent standpoint, where are they hiring the same labor that you need? Since we put a lot of effort into launching this labor tool within our product, right now it's free. So anybody can sign up for Scout, provide the description of the folks that they're going to hire over the next 5 or 10 years. You can do this confidentially as well under a project name. We will match the title and SOC codes for those jobs, and then scored labor across every market in the US. And we're looking at cost, we're looking at availability, competitiveness, quality of life, and you can then compare each of these locations to try and get a good sense for if a market is even viable. If you need 25 new jobs over a few years, not a huge deal. If you're talking about 250, this could be the biggest decision that you make. Moving on to financing. Best place to start with financing, in our opinion, is a 20-year NPV. If you don't know how to build this, Claude does. And it's a great place to start. So you can consolidate all your CapEx and OpEx and really understand over 20 years which of these locations, if you do this at a city, county, and state level, which of these locations is going to create the biggest cost burden for you, where your gaps are, and then use that to start building a plan around how to finance the facility. What we see right now, the most common request in site selection, if it's an existing building, is a lease. I think what a lot of earlier stage companies are missing is that a landlord looks at a startup. Even if you raised $100 million, they look at you as risky. Just because you have $100 million in the bank, they don't know much about your technology. They don't know if you're planning to spend $50 million on machinery at your current facility tomorrow. You could go out of business overnight. There could be a policy change. These are just inherent risks to startups. And so thinking about your project as an investment for that landlord, who is an institutional investor a lot of times, is really important. They're thinking in cap rates. So the higher the cap rates, the more they feel that you are a risky asset. And so one of the things you can do is come to the table knowing this. We are encouraging founders to almost pitch landlords and investors of buildings like they are investors in their company. And so coming to the table, letting them know what your operation looks like, how you're going to generate revenue at that facility, get them excited. If you have federal funding, that's important for them to know. If you have offtakes or LOIs from customers, that's really key. If you have to, and in a lot of cases you do, you're going to have to come with a securitization of rent and any TI that they're providing you. So these are just levers that you can pull, but go into it thinking like, just put yourself in their shoes. They could go out and get Amazon. They could go out and get Lockheed. They could get some really class A-class tenants, and you just have to think about how to partner with them to make sure you're an attractive one. A lot of folks ask us about the incentive landscape at the federal and local level. We work with companies that are backed by the DOE, that are backed by the CHIPS Act. We don't specialize at Scout Cities in securing the federal side, but we know many folks who do. I would say find a partner. If this is not a specialty of your team, find a partner who can at least give you advice on the federal side, because there are still tons of buckets of money that are eligible, that these projects are eligible for. From a state standpoint, that's where really we support. What I can tell you is that state funding will not pay for your facility. It will be a cherry on top, and you will need to prove that you can finance the facility and you can secure the facility without state incentives. There are, when it comes to buildings, I mentioned leases is of course the most common we see right now. We do see if it's a facility where you're investing a ton in the power infrastructure, being able to own that property is probably going to be more advantageous because you're putting so much money into the facility and into the power itself, and that's going to be very, very valuable in the end. So finding ways to finance that facility in a non-traditional way, there's many options. I'll share this deck after and can always dig into these ideas, but maybe that's partnering with the developer, municipal bonds, government-owned facilities, a lot of different angles here that are worth considering. Takeaways. Start now. A lot of folks think you can't put the genie back in the bottle with site selection. They don't want to go to market and find properties or engage with communities or talk to utility because they feel like, well, what if I have to stop in a month? I can tell you that we start and stop all the time, but the information we collect along the way helps us to sprint when we're ready. And that's probably, of all these things, that's the most important, is get information now, have conversations so you can be prepared later. The next is power. It's a bigger challenge than you think. And I recommend talking to some utilities or talk to building owners, talk to folks that know information about what power is available at a site you're looking at. Labor, run an analysis, see what it looks like to build a labor force in a particular market. And then from a financing standpoint, you can stack federal, state, and local, and you should think like a landlord and know what your gaps are, know what they might look at as really risky, and be able to speak to that, especially if you need to move fast and you're really keen on a certain market that is highly competitive. And have a little fun. We had a customer, we ask our customers for case studies all the time, and I asked a customer what he likes most about Scout. He says, we just have fun working with you guys. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to put that on our website. I wanted something a lot more detailed, but it did make me realize these are really high stakes processes and projects, and having a little fun along the way is actually not so bad. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. Reminder to everyone on that we were going to do Q&A. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and I will read them out. But as the moderator, I get to ask the first question. So Ryan, once someone has selected a site, they know the geography they want to be in. At what is the right level to engage? Should they be going to the district congressman? Should they be going to economic development group people? How do you advise startups to use the most leverage early on to find the right partners once they've found a site?
Yeah, I would say you want to find the partners before the site, because a lot of times the partners can help you find the site. I think for existing buildings, brokers are incredible. Just for property in general, brokers are really helpful. They understand the market better than anyone. And having somebody on your side who knows the market is really important. But I would engage the economic developers and the utilities very early, especially if it's an energy intensive project or a labor intensive project. Get those partners involved early. So I think the stack would be somebody to help on the site selection side, if you're looking in multiple markets. Then it would be an economic development organization from like a policy and workforce standpoint. It would be a broker from a property standpoint, and it would be a utility from a power and gas and water and wastewater standpoint.
Fantastic. Thank you. So one thing that really stood out to me was the emphasis you put on power, which seems obvious maybe to many people on the call, but I would have overlooked that, I think, as one of my key factors. So I'm curious, what are other criteria that are often overlooked, you think, by startups as they're going through? And obviously you've thought about this with the different factors that Scout Cities track, but what are some maybe unknowns that startups should be on the lookout for when they're selecting a site?
It's a good question. I think it's going to be different for everybody, but obviously we talked about the really key ones today. I think that I always encourage our team because we're often an extension of our customer's team, and our customer is the venture-backed hard tech company. We are looking for as many risks as possible. Like what could blow up this deal? Is it a community element? Like if we're doing a fusion project, there's no way there's been no fusion education at the local levels and in the US. And we could find the perfect site with the perfect power, but I think the biggest risk to that deal is community education. And so partnering with the state, partnering with the municipality to get that education going early of what that's actually going to look like is the biggest risk and biggest opportunity in that deal. In another deal, we're doing a data center deal, and the utilities telling us they're going to build out a substation, and that's we're going to have access to that. And the biggest risk there is like we're reliant on somebody else's timing. And so I would recommend thinking about once your project gets enough legs at a certain site, thinking about all the risks and what could actually kill the deal. Work with your team, work with your partners, but yeah, identify those risks and alleviate them. Those are a couple examples that I've seen.
Excellent. So I'm curious, you've now been at this for 3 years. What have you seen change in the landscape that excites you over the past 3 years? Obviously, there's been a renewed focus on reindustrialization. Hard tech startups are well capitalized. What have you seen from your unique vantage point that has got you excited or concerned about this current moment?
Yeah, I think folks are the industry. We started in this industry because we thought it was really lacking technology. We thought that it was too focused on spreadsheets and PDFs and emails, and we're like, well, these are hundreds of millions. So we're working on a $1.5 billion project. Like these are massive decisions. We have to do better. We have to aggregate more data. We have to take an approach that a technologist would take. And so the receptiveness from both the company as well as the supply side, which we see being the community, the utilities, the brokers, the developers, everyone's receptiveness to participate together to get the best outcomes and to use technology more has been something that, of course, we're trying to usher in and we think is working, but that I'm also very excited about because everybody's willing to play together.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I think from a challenge standpoint, it's still really freaking slow. I mean,
Yeah.
like a lot of this is very, very legacy. We haven't had this massive national mandate to reindustrialize and bring jobs and manufacturing back to the US. And so we're still operating on very legacy timelines, and that makes this really hard. And I'd like to see even more technology to improve some of the old ways and some of the really slow elements of site selection. And some is just really hard to solve. If you have to do a system impact study at a site and the utility has to run that, they're not overnight going to move that from a 3 to 6 month process to 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. To the point about speed, one of the things that we were talking about prior to this call was just how long permitting can take. Of course, at NIA, we care very deeply about permit reform. It seems like that is an extreme bottleneck for people. Do you have any policy recommendations or just things or anecdotes to share about the stumbling stones of having really long cycle times on permitting and how maybe we can improve on that?
Once we have a short list, and we'll do this at like 10 locations, we try to get a mutual success permitting plan in place with all the stakeholders at the state and local level and have them identify for us, because we've been on many calls who say, how long does this take? And it's just sort of hand wavy. And if we can get something in writing, a simple spreadsheet that shows the path to securing this permit, who approves it, what type of documentation do we need, like get all your ducks in a row very early and share that with the stakeholders so that we're all working from the same sheet has been pretty effective. And that's my recommendation is like, don't just take it for face value and put it in your notes, put together the shared document that everybody's working towards, and try to partner deeper at the state level. If they're really excited about bringing your company to their region, they should be good partners with you. I can't say that everybody knows at the state level the permitting pathway in every community, but at least they can help you push if you're stalling. And same with the local economic development groups. And then oftentimes a local resource. So we're doing a project in a pretty rural area where we need someone who's done a project there, who's actually done a development to help us on the permitting side and help us with the community engagement, because they think there's some risk to that project getting stalled out for those reasons.
Understood. Thank you. Well, I'd like to once more plug the chat if there are any questions. The last one for me, Ryan, is how can people stay in touch with you, engage with Scout Cities, and hear more about the important work you all are doing?
Just reach out, really approachable and accessible on LinkedIn, email, call, come to Bozeman if you want to say hi in person, but we're traveling often too. So yeah, just reach out. We'd love to support. We tell our whole team that we should try very, very hard to add as much value as we can throughout the process before anyone ever pays us a dime. Like, give our data away, give our platform away, see the value, and then at some point we could work together in the future. But that's really important to us. And also, if there's information or data that we don't have that would be really, really helpful to somebody, we'd like to know that. And we're quite fast at adding new information these days.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for doing this. On behalf of NIA and Scout Cities, thank you all for attending. We will share out this deck and Ryan's contact information, but please do not hesitate to reach out if anyone has any questions, and thank you again for attending.
Thanks, everybody.